Happy holidays, however you celebrate, from Tom Ellsworth to Biz Doc. And we're going to go look into something. You saw Amy Dangerfield and I run week after week, finding the truth, finding the best polls, finding everything for the Decision 2024. That's us right here, as you can see. But what was also interesting was we were kind of tracking not just the polls, but all of the crazy things that unfolded week after week after week on the news. And we were sitting here with the Valuetainment team. Valuetainment Studios team has done a great job all year. And we were sitting around and we asked ourselves, what were the top 10 moments of the election? We're going to go from 10 up, and then we're going to take you through the honorable mentions. So, number 10, we like to say J.D. Vance is our other man. It was a pick that all surprised everybody. It was quite the moment. And then there was a week of wondering, was this really the right guy to pick? What was it? And then we saw him campaign. And then he was quiet for about 3 weeks. And then we saw him debate Tim Walz. And then we saw him, and then we saw him, and then we saw him. And all of a sudden everybody was like, this badass is our VP pick. So it started slow, but picked up speed. Number 10 is J.D. Vance is our other man. Number 9, Tim Walz is a knucklehead. That's not us talking, that's him talking. We saw him get picked, and we saw odd dancing, kicking his foot, yanking his son, who is a special needs individual, and us all wondering, what is this all about? And then say, well, maybe when he tightens up the suit a little bit, puts on that tie, and sits in the VP debate, maybe we'll see the real one. And then they asked him, did you or did you not go to China? He gave a 2-minute answer instead of just saying, yeah, I kind of stretched the truth on that. And then when cornered at the end, he just said, what can I say? I'm a knucklehead. So number 9 was America looks on and grimaces, regardless of your political party, when Tim Walz says, yeah, I'm a knucklehead. Number 9. Number 8, I call this one drive-through trolling. Despite the Democrats' efforts to poke and poke, Donald Trump knew how to troll, and suddenly, here he is, sticking his head out of a drive-through McDonald's, having a conversation with a young man that worked at McDonald's, and basically trolling like a badass, shamelessly, fearlessly, boldly working at a McDonald's to make a point to Kamala and looking them in the eye and saying, you want some fries with that? Number 7, RFK Jr. makes it official. He steps on stage in Phoenix and announces he's abandoning his presidential bid with a big handshake and a raucous crowd, and announces that Maha is joining MAGA. And the rest is history, as a big tree fell in the woods and everybody heard it, as RFK wasn't a Democrat, he wasn't an independent. Suddenly he's supporting the Republican candidate and saying how he looked forward to changing the rules with America's food, health, and medicine, leaving industries to cringe. But RFK Jr. makes it official is number 7. Number 6, Trump becomes a victim. No, really, this isn't people pretending to be victims. He became a victim as he stood in the New York courtroom on May 30th and was pronounced guilty of all those felony counts. Remember, that's when Alvin Bragg took what was 1 count and turned it into 34. And that's going to haunt Mr. Bragg. But they turned Trump into a martyr from that day forward. Between that walkout where he said, this is a sham, this is terrible, and he was right, and he became the victim, you put that back to 2023, the famous mugshot from Georgia. I put it all together, and I say Trump becomes a victim was number 6. Number 5. Harris is our girl, and world goes crazy, and the polls bounce up, and everything goes nuts. And then she hides for 42 days and finally comes out in public, answering questions very oddly, sounding drunk, and leaving us to say, no wonder they had her hiding for 42 days. But Harris is our girl is number 5. And with a footnote to number 5, and then she picks Tim Walz. Number 4, now we're getting toward the top of the biggest moments in the campaign. Now remember, these weren't necessarily the greatest impact. They were big moments. And I'll have to say, number 5, Harris is our girl, was certainly a big moment, but an even bigger one was when Musk jumped in and jumped all over the stage in the return to Butler, Pennsylvania on October 5th, when Trump goes up to the mic and says, as I was saying, in one of the greatest reopening lines in presidential campaign history, with Musk jumping and supporting him and no longer making little tweets. What did you mean by that, Elon? What did you mean by this? Suddenly there he is saying, I got $100 million and I am backing Donald Trump. Dark MAGA rode into the sunset that day, and it was a massive, massive moment that left the media beside themselves. Number 4, Musk jumps in. Number 3, Biden writes a weird letter, a very weird letter that wasn't even on White House official letterhead and was just circulated to the media. Was he held at gunpoint? Was he asleep and they were just moving his arm while he signed it? Who knows? But it was a weird letter in which on July 21st, he drops out of the race, leaving everyone to say, who's it going to be? Could it be Gavin Newsom? Could it be J.B. Pritzker from Illinois? No one knew, but the obvious choice that everybody was immediately behind, suddenly, mysteriously, everybody was behind it. Kamala Harris. She is VP. She's been VP. She's been to the border once she figured out where it was. Thank you, Google Maps. And that was that. Number 2, Biden gets 2 in the top 5. Number 2, the Biden debate debacle. On June 27th, Joe Biden was paraded, pushed, told, or otherwise tricked into going into the debate with Donald Trump, which ended horribly. He looked terrible. Did some people want him to look like that? Was this Nancy Pelosi's secret trick to then not be the bad girl because everybody's going to look at it and she could just say, well, what the heck? See for yourself. Nonetheless, number 2 was the Biden debate debacle, leaving number 1, and there's only one number 1. In this campaign, number 1 is fight, fight, fight. The Butler, Pennsylvania near-miss assassination attempt that left all of us, including this man, very emotional and choked up to see him arise with the blood on his cheek and walk out and encourage all of us to get behind it. You know, half the media that didn't think he had a campaign came out afterwards and said, this is over. But then they got all excited when Kamala was their girl and they went after it. However, she never really had a campaign. So number 1, fight, fight, fight. The Trump assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now then, that's everything, but there were some honorable mentions. And I'm going to do these at high speed, and the team's going to give you the clips running through them. So here we go. The immunity ruling. The Supreme Court cleared Trump of everything. Then Fani Willis get investigated after she's investigating Trump. Then Beyonce ain't singing at the DNC. Nope, she'll be here. Yep, she going to sing? Yeah, she's performing. They lied to everybody, specifically the USA Today, who ran with the story. Then Taylor Swift endorses, but nothing really changed. People were still paying a lot for Taylor Swift tickets, but they weren't registering or showing up in the polls as having done anything. As a matter of fact, certain polls says that Taylor Swift hurt Kamala Harris. Then Trump trolls again, this time in a garbage truck in Green Bay. After they called his people garbage, he whips out another trolling idea, and guess what? He's in a white truck saying, if they're garbage, then I'm going with them. This is big, beautiful white garbage truck, and Trump wearing an orange vest and getting incredible media coverage, leaving the Dems to say, is there anything we can't do that was going to impede this guy? Then a round of golf and a second assassination attempt, September 15th. That was big. Finally, keep your pet indoors. Immigrants were actually not eating pets in Springfield, Ohio. Finally, Obama pokes the bros. The bros yell back, and Obama arguably had a bigger loss than Kamala Harris as America realized that suddenly his influence is down, his mood is down, his face was downcast, and Obama wasn't Obama. His legacy, reputation, and the juice that once he had in the DNC, all at all-time lows. And finally, the challengers fizzle. We have to remember the springtime. DeSantis drops out. Haley drops out. They had something to say about Trump, and later they would come on to endorse. Those are all the honorable mentions in what was one of the most eventful years of all time when it comes to presidential politics and elections. And thank goodness Americans made it too big to rig, which is something Donald Trump said in this clip.
We want a landslide this November. We want something too big to rig, too big to rig.
So that's my top 10 and the honorable mentions. I'm Tom Ellsworth, the Biz Doc, where I get my news, vtnews.ai. You should consider it too. And happy holidays, however you celebrate it, and have a safe and happy new year. Plan your next year. Go kill it. Use the winds of progress that it looks like our government is going to give us, we hope, and crush it.